The ships that carried the slaves were insured by reputable insurance companies that are some of the richest in the world today and profited from.
Your Excellency, Secretary General of the UN.
If you know what happened to the slaves, nothing compares to it in everything that has happened in this world, to the 15 million people who were sent away, those who died. I'll give you the case of one example. A ship captain threw 134 slaves overboard to go and claim insurance because the cargo, your ancestors were cargo. And so if the ship lost cargo, there was insurance that compensated for the loss of cargo. And 134 slaves, he threw them overboard and went and filed an insurance claim for loss of cargo. And you know, before now, the arguments have been fragmented. A few people have acknowledged. I know some of the leading corporates have come and apologized for their role in this, but the whole discussion has been fragmented. And so our purpose was to put it on record, the true story of the slave trade. If even to just let the spirit of our ancestors rest, I am happy that we went. I'm happy that we went to the General Assembly and it is recorded for eternity in the records that this happened. It will never be forgotten. Those who seek to erase their memory have failed. Their memory is in the records of the highest platform, global platform that we have. And so let's not trivialize it and say, oh, but there were people involved. In the record of the Holocaust, there were Jews who were prison guards. There were Jews who pointed out where other Jews were hiding. And yet the Holocaust is recognized as genocide and a crime against humanity. So why not the slave trade? Because some Africans were involved. It doesn't absolve those who built the system and financed it. And so we'll call them out. I don't care what anybody says, we'll call them out. And so Ghana has done its bit. Ghana has been recognized for leading the Pan-Africanist struggle. And I think this is just an extension of that leadership. Now that we have it on record, the same coalition that came together to do this, including our CARICOM brothers and sisters, they have a 10-point plan on reparations. I think that we should build a coalition around their 10-point plan for reparative justice and restitution. And it goes beyond just reparations. It includes artifacts that were stolen. Only recently, the head of one of our chiefs has been returned. It is in 37, being preserved in 37. They cut off his head and took it and put it in a museum for many years. It has only recently come back. And so it's a broader discussion than those who seek to trivialize it. And we will continue to lead if our leadership is needed, but we will continue to be a good part of that coalition that continues to press for reparative justice and restitution.
Yo, abusia for aha, Eddie, Moamonim say, aha, near did the ipso factus, no, Eddie Gumu, Eddie Amamo. Intin mini awaba has here, try and engage yourself. We're going to have a very peaceful, very wonderful, and a very insightful discussion regarding what has been put on the airwaves by our president and the debacle shown by the Ghana blaster coach Otuado. Does Otuado need any kind of reparations? No, you see now the word of the month, March, running through March to April. Reparations. So yebebusa say Otuado o deserve reparations. Dobi biase, ya dobi biase. We live in a free world. We live in a democratic world, and so you allow people to also share their opinion, irrespective of the fact that whether you are happy with what people are saying about your decision or not. You have to respect other people's opinion. Yes, they may be stupid. Yes, they may be stupid. You may not like the omo yeno, but I was so tia so many mo amoba no ade na mudwane mon startina mo nyede mo nyina ho e ma mo nwane. Yes, I know say ebi mudwane, but me ma mo nwane. We're going to hit hard or even harder than before. More ye video ne to yes, mo be share mo comment. I don't normally react to people's comment on YouTube and Facebook and what have you, but I want you to send your comment for us to hold conversation. Now, conversation no enkoswa enye de our platforms near day. Eso Otuado ya pamono a long overdue. Wa ontiasi and ubetimi abobo ibiadi egu posuno nante so they call America koshe World Cup no. Otuado for the first time na ye can ye say what's ye pamono no. A Jimmy for more ye be kasa omo ye Jimmy for Ket Okreku. Ni sometimes no na me catch you say utu obi afri ho. Na ye wa adwen say udi obi foforo ba. You're very careful. Kwesi nyantechi aye tintintinti. Ye tu no ya san kofa obi a wajimi sin kwesi nyantechi ene ye de na yedai abetena efe ho omo no sisi no yetimi ekokobo World Cup yetimi parody Ghana players see the tournament na yentimi nya 5 solid players Dogomoro Park ewo aswanse say okobo premiership pe baby nefa ekope academy bibo na bompa ye say ye beto na ye de wako foreign land no wako akope bibia de ayo because who is too time na akobo Ghana league no a opportunity bia ni ho e de ma yeah because ye tise kwaku mensan bi etikata kra na ye bekwa akohwehwe no esin kwaku mensan ye ne netifie. This is the thing. This is what we are doing today. Tomorrow obiba beka che say into reparations, and we are here. We will hit hard. And there's certain statement to be a President John Mahama. I can't. Yes, he has his opinion. I have my opinion. But send your orca say will be criticized. Say ni okoye no a infantile. Just say a young krasemoa. We will hit harder. This is African history. It is not MPP NDC. MPP NDC assembly. But when it comes to this particular matter, aha na eme de. Aha NAM that you may be very good making sure the petrol no one swat it. But regarding this matter, no, maybe no maybe no. Remember President John Mahama who say he is still a slave. So nimwa and me be so amanatre no. Ain't no Senenia Brenna was so on TS say among for criticize it. I am not talking about the criticism from Afenyo Markins. Afenyo Markins they were Jimmy. Into only criticism, a Jimmy criticism. What yes, yeah. But I am stemming my criticism from the standpoint, from the point that you bet say reparation no. Wope say yintua no. And I said treacherous kind of act meted out onto a certain group of people. Like Yatias here, and we all applaud and acknowledge every Tom, Dick, and Harry who put the effort into making sure that this particular thing aba amankophobia omodesa atrocity we edi nipa no omo agi atum ebi mo agi atum akwa vote a resolve say yes ade no eye ade na etia enipa eni nipa kuo bi okay yade atum say ade no na enye na ebon na ye kankan intinipa agi atum but nipa agi atum no e was say what ase last I was happy some people hold yes broni no a ono ne nana edo ya akwa no ne nana na ene wusu a kire ne say ontua reparations emfa ma wo no onye na adwen say on majority no omo koso bone ne pa no omo nye omo adwen say omo begi atum. I don't know. British ne dey so omo di 80 maximum 90 years na British ne yetna ye. Mi busa o obi nim aban baby a Portugal for to call ye ana Portugal for ye hia for ana. Mi pe baby a Denmark for to o ma ba call ye. Mi pe baby a Holland for to o ma ba call ye. Mi pe baby a Sweden, Denmark, Holland or Dutch for no. And a Germans almost two omaba a koye. Say England, you'll be him say British no. UK for no kotuma. Jomahama and then call for more champions no. But the biggest question of all, and then they say, question of all, ye busa. Enye. Adofo bonene course wo mo asase so pa ye friend America for no motoma mo ana omo nsusu a emre bia atwamu enipa bi di omo efa akwan bi so a ye se the Holocaust ye kunkum omo toma mo ana dabi Argentina for toma mo ana dabi mibusa say Spain for toma mo ana I don't know enti no mo mfa list no wa onim list no Mr. say obekoso no aye list no na ade aba e de amaye enti kamutimi ye list no de maya anke beboa ye pa se mutimi ye list no e de mame wa hase a anke beboa me I've realized say I don't know why the feed is being suppressed because I think when people are watching it and who say network no yeah na almost free so me free ha o ye ndc ni enye ndc asem ne yebeka ope mahama asem a ompe mahama asem nseme me na mbeka no ho asem kire wo na wo de koto aba edema no enti enye eno ho asem ne yebeka but Mr. President Mahama one sem no a wo kan ye no why ya de say at least enkofo bi agye atumu say omo ya ade bi a entwa ye omo ankasa titiri pa wo se nka omo gitum say ade omo ye na entwa ye no ebi mu da so tete ho a omo mpese o meyi omo ti aba eno ne ye beka ho asem daache the reason ti ebi mu mpese omo beye ne say it is their culture. It is what they have planned to do. Say, if they accept today that kind of dastardly act on other people, no, the African people, no, say ne omona nanomu jitumua neche say it is going to prevent omono omotiase neno say omuntimu nimu bone and omono ese omo adwimu de bia say omo bedi nipa bone inti eye hard man say obe acknowledge say wadi bone ne because oditum if they tend to accept that dastardly and sinister act no omo meting out to some of our people, our great grandfathers now and mothers now, they will not have, or it will be very difficult for them to repeat such experience later on. And in order not to have any difficulty, not to put themselves in any subtle kind of condition, they will remain silent. They will not vote against. They will not vote for, so that later days to come, if they want to go back and revisit history, they can do that with ease. Okay? And don't forget, it's a history that is repeating itself. Eya bako sembia side abo aba neti ama ya side ahwe bio na nkofo bi omu di bone enrechi no omu gusu edi bone ne nne opa wachew enne a etna ontumi enni sa bone ne bio because ube yusu etia nse na ade a wapa ho achew ena wo san ye no. Yes, Mr. President Mahama, enemre mo ayewe yemfa 10 enso 9 and thinking kwachiri a they said the president ka say ebimu ya infantile no won so a betie me no with the ears of John Mahama no, you also become infantile to this particular message. And then they say you are asking for reparation payment, meanwhile the person you are asking for reparation payment from, you are using their language. Supposedly, Odenekasa, Odenadjin, Odenibi Bia Nessa kwa pre reparation at the free ho. Ne culture, ne religion, ne bia, and no dear mouth. You have not let go of those in your manner. We say, on Kaise wedu boni. And that your ancestors are happy. Say, wama enkofo acknowledge say omwedi yomboni. The first question I'm person me busa ye president and say, did our ancestors, those who were sold into slavery, those who were sold into slavery, no, me person me busa say, did they allow themselves to be Christianized? No. See the mekano. You belong to the church of the Assemblies of God. Assemblies of God, no. The ancestors now no. Did they accept to be Christians? There be. Because sa slavery nyoma na wo ka se enyenti yentua bi empata mfama no na sa religion ne ka ho, in the sense that that religion is not from God. God has not commissioned anyone with any kind of rules, any kind of practices that if you want to come to me, follow A, B, C, D. Certain group of people sat down because of how delusional they are, and so they came up with stories telling the world that of all the human race we have, they have been selected, they have been named as the chosen ones. And so out of those people, certain other religions came out of them. Of their religious practices, and nobody be enslaved. And then you are going back to the same people. Say slavery ni slavery na enye no. And no na adequate Assemblies of God no. And I stated here and now, without any kind of ambiguity, that if you are fighting for reparation, you should as well fight against religion, Christianity one, and Islamic religion. Because the ancestors now can't no more practice it. if you so want to make them proud, as you put it. In your argument, how you put forth your argument, say, oh yeah, they are saying I am stating it here and now. I am stating it here and now. Say, Portugal for no mudi kind by 1471. Omoniye betray from 1471 up until 1872. Do your maths. About 401 years. Portugal for n'inkwano. Omoniye tna ya kosi 1872. Oyo masa. Portugal for n'inkwano ye tna 401 years. Ibusawo. Official church eba Ghana. When the Portuguese landed, they came with their Catholic practices, but they did not officially establish that particular system, until 1828. Almost formalize it, say, this is it. Those who came with slavery, missionaries, some of the missionaries now no mukra Bible, slave traders. And at the time, our people were not considered. Those who were bought into slavery, they were not considered as human beings. They considered them as commodities. Now, let's make simple analysis. For you, Mr. Some people, I am not those people, but if some people hold certain kind of perception, view to what you did, General Assembly, you cannot say that they are putting up infantile argument, which is wrong. We're not talking about Jewish people. We're talking about our history. In as much as you are looking for reparations, we have to stand on our right to also leave the right history and information down, put them down for our people or a future generation to come and read. Don't let us embellish our history with some kind of like we want to play some emotional cards. If you deal with your oppressors with emotional cards, you always get it wrong because they deal with you with science, with practicality, and with empirical stuff, not emotional things. Because if indeed they were dealing with you with emotional stuff and moral stuff, then they shouldn't have, in the first place, coaxed you into this kind of barbaric act. They considered those who were bought into slavery as commodities. Now, let's know the qualities of a commodity. You made mention that Barclays brothers were paid compensations. Now, if I am a trader, I go to Burkina to buy tomato. The tomato is the commodity. I go, I carry my monies with me. I carry my money, be it in safer or in dollars. I carry my money, take my money to get my commodity, tomato. I buy my tomato. And then the officials in my country come up one day with some regulations that, henceforth, my citizens are not going to be allowed to use tomato to prepare any kind of food. Already, I have taken loans to go and then buy the tomato. You have to find a way to make sure that I don't lose my capital. So you will compensate me because you are coming up with some rules, and I shouldn't be the sufferer of your policies. So you have to compensate me. Bro, brothers and sisters, are you going to compensate me or you compensate the commodity? You compensate the trader, not the tomato. Holds for the Africans who were seen in the eyes of the slave masters as a commodity. And don't forget that it was slave trade. It is not transatlantic slave capture. Listen, it was slave trade. No one single person can do trading. This is where our president is getting it wrong. In as much as we want people to pay us reparations, then what happens to the monies the slave masters or the slave traders pay to those they bought their slaves from? For example, some of the kings, and it's right, and this one is you cannot hide it. When they announced the abolish the Akan communities, some of the Ashanti chiefs were not happy because at the time they had also bought slaves from other parts, from the hinterlands, and they were keeping the slave to be transported to Cape Coast, and then along the process, they heard that the slave trade has been abolished. So some became agitated, some became furious, they were angry. Why? Where are they going to send these or going to keep these slaves? People gathered their monies. Please, if you are going to Africa, you take this £2. If you can get me 2 young males, 2 young females, buy them and bring them to me. My fathers have bought land in the Caribbeans. I want to send them to go and do plantation for me. You take the money, you go down there, you buy stuff. On your way back, your government announced that there should be like some kind of a ban, or there's a ban on this kind of business. So it means that the monies that has been given to me to go make this payment should be left to go down the compensation. The same way people collected monies in Ghana, DKM and all those people, you started compensating people. So there's nothing wrong when the British people decided that they want to pay some of the slave owners because they had sent their monies, their resources to acquire, to get the slaves from Africa. Whether the Ashanti traded with the British, they give them slaves, they give them gold, and then they get their guns. So it was a trade. And the people who were selling their own people to the Europeans saw their own people out of the equation. It wasn't like we were in our country and they started killing us. Some people started killing us because in that case, they didn't see us as a commodity like what happens to the Jews. The Jews were not slaves. They were only targeted that some people said, oh, I want to kill you for no reason. No one's money was involved in that. Like you buy a slave, okoto slave. Like what tusika akoto slave no. Uto slave ni wie na no na atna Kumasi atna Cape Coast. Agye me etuo, wagye me agyan, wagye me mahwehwe, wagye me esitire. Na wo de wo ba de ama me. Na me de wo ba ne kwa. some years later, now na bia ba say me ma metua compensation and say me metua reparations ma. Okay, metua reparations na ma. Me nso me atuo me dan me sekan na me di ma me di tua wo ba ne ka no. Onso so convert ni siska or sa atuo no sesa ne fa bre me. Moma yenti ase o. Obi ede ne ba bre o. E no say Jeme ba no anase odi like Jeme ba no e no nso age usika. E no say me de me ba na yede achew fa ne kodi dwuma. E na wuji usika. E na odi akra na te nipa no na odi kokuma ase. Odi kokuma ase no. Wakwa ko report e de ama police say odi uba nani enti wonfa oba emre na onsa like wadu yemfa nse wadu uba nani ama oba na wu odoba na ye adwuma enti no ade tie na oba ni wuye na ade bi tie na oba foforo na foforo bi aba say maami we ne mana omo kuma ase no omo maami nua bi ana me nana bi wu omo ho sika no a wo nana nso gye agreement no ne me ye ya ansa na o mama fa sa wo nana na obewu ye se ye de na be ye adwuma ma na wu no onso so tua ma me no de mo mpese mo beti I no de bibini mpese obetie this side of the story they will not be happy. Mr. President, you see, if you guys don't structure your argument very well, you will lose. Yeah? The people you guys are dealing with now, you're too brilliant, too intelligent, and too smart. The people you guys are dealing with now, you're too intelligent, you're too brilliant, you're too smart, and too sophisticated. You have no idea. You have no idea. And you seem not to take what is happening currently as an example. Do you know why the entire Africa, none of the Africa country, no, any team produce ammunitions? Adentia. Have you realized, Mr. Muhammad? Oka Kwame Nkrumah sem adentina nkofoni tu Kwame Nkrumah. Do you think the Americans were so stupid to commit state resources into the overthrow of Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah? And they realized that Kwame Nkrumah was in the process of letting go of all the colonial, what we call the colonial vestiges. All the systems na no more honum. And that was the reason Nkrumah started African studies. When you get to know more of your history, man has no nature, what man has is history. If you get to know more of your history, you tend to dislike, to abhor any culture, any religion, any sort of things from oppressor. No? Your slave master gave you cloth you wore. The slave master gave you a God and you worship, and you continue to worship that one you don't want to let go. You want the slave money to pay you what? Reparations. Mr. President. That Momo conversation now I'm making and infantile. Momo conversation now I'm making infantile. And now one almost Christianity no mujaya. Now look at what has become charlatans. The Brunino cra am farm remono and no namoti Africa. And namoje. You go to Nigeria, Oyadipo is building like massive structure at the Nipamremu sorry, but Oyadipo cannot build a factory to employ the same people no omumra sorry no. He abrofu yo omo tisro e na omo hwe ye wo asase ne so e na omo hosi ye dimi ankasa. Abrofu no omo no tisro e na ye ti asase ne so e na omo hwe ye na omo hu se ye dimi ankasa. Networking so ye bi o. Okaka obi beka say I network ni ye bi. The network is doing some ono so ye bi. That conversation we me. Network ye bi. I network ni ye bi pa. Views no rise here network no. And so at TSM. I think we need to change the platform now. Yeah, you know. And then see how best ye be to me to make sure say network no. It's me day. At me ejina so ye e mind na we there. It's really terrible for me. But I bet was Omopa enka nipa 2. Network nipa enye den enka nipa 2 still ano. Ye beye. In Springfield, people are eating the dogs. One of the top like Korean chief meat, a dog. Kramai nam na Korea for pe. Enti eba se Korea for who say no, ye ntimi nwe kramai ni bio because we treat kramai say or ye man's best friend. A dog. The man's best friend a dog. Enti ye ntimi nwe. Enti na was say Korean government no. Utia compensation de ma omo ton kramai nam wo Korea bontin so. Enti no se ugu obi business oni boni bia but wo na wo say wo aban no watena se adwen hu se enye se nipa ye nyina ya resolve say ye gu ne dia ene ye gu no a me nso so no de na me misu medi because eno nso ye madwuma ma ya atua ho taxes de ama wo ma ya atua ho taxes de ama wo na se wo gu ne dia me mo kro no me nya dia e wo se opɛ kwan bia so na wo ye dai o ma me bibi na me de koye adwuma foforo into Korea government e sha se o ma se amanfo enjai omo dogs no na amanfo mfa nye pet instead of say omo ku omo we no na omo nwe ebia chicken cows and wine yes compensation edema omo ana omo ton kraman no but kraman na ankwa anko yedidi kraman na ye jai no say onye pet no kraman no koye pet a obi to ni ko ni fie a afi o man aduane di no ne ma emeka nche Korean government say na ye inhumane treatment ene ye de ma omo nkraman ni nti no omo nananom no a mo aku omo awe no nti no mo nye dai mo ntia reparations emaye and why am ne kraman no ye ni kraman no nunti na ye bruni ni din so obetua e de ama no and there hasn't been any single payment of reparation to slave trade adena akos obi ba be ka say and German for etua reparations edema the Jews no mo nye slaves e wo Jews no mo ye adwuma editua taxes edema oman no and obi ye say obey for no reason. They were not slaves. So biaka soji reparations are. Let me tell you, United Kingdom, British no mobile 5 years slaves, no. Before say Britain, Britain, not Denmark for and the Vikings. The Saxons no omwe di womo so. Emma William the Conqueror or ye French or ye France from France. Ensu be di nkofo we mo so. Enka nipa be start asa line say wonso so na be fa de ye akwa. Enti tua empata ma no ene nke wi ase nke nyentua empata nwie. Because the Mongolians no omo captured the entire Asia to the Orientals. What is a China for Mongols and say omuntua one more bra and now dim pataichi. Mr. President, get this thing from your own beloved son and Koto that because we didn't live and we have not decided to live our lives well, that is why we are following reparations. Because the continent, it's too rich, too wealthy, too fantastically and fabulously rich to the extent that no single child should go to bed without food. But what do we see? It is because we haven't been able to live up to expectation. Because we have stupidly survived. And that is why we are chasing after reparations. We can't go to the table. There's no invitation for us to go to the table. Why? Because our hands are dirty. We are wearing tattered clothes. And we don't represent any meaningful thing. That is why we haven't been invited to the table. Well, guess what? Don't you think that if we start to do our things right and get to put our ass together, we will not even shout for invitation? The party thrower will be chasing us. When it's harvest time in these your so-called churches, do the rich ones in your community go chasing your pastors or your pastors, the rich individuals in the community that, oh, please, the next 2 weeks ahead of us, our church is having a harvest. You honor this harvest for us. They will even beg this rich man before they invite. And the rich man will say, oh, I will look into my diary and see if there will be me to squeeze so I can make it to the program. The rich man will now be looking through, will be rummaging through his book to see if he can get a spot somewhere to fix that program. But those who don't live their lives well, they will be in the church and they will be carrying the broom and be sweeping the church auditorium. But people who have lived, who have something to show, they will not come to the church room and sweep. The church members will be looking for such ones. And when such ones show up, the entire congregation becomes happy. You think you can eat your cake and have it? No, it doesn't work like that. Let's also, make our people know. And the stupid thing some of our chiefs, some of our traditional, their behavior is so bad, terrible. to the extent that it cannot even be compared to the behavior of those who existed some 400 years ago. Why are we still talking and struggling to curtail this issue of galamsey? What is more grievous in our dispensation than galamsey? And we are chasing reparations. So after chasing reparations, we will come back and our water bodies are all gone. Our land are now desolate. Our food destroyed. Our very existence diminished. My brothers and sisters, what I'm saying may sound so weird and too weird in your ears, but I have to say it. This is the bitter fact I'm laying bare before you. So if you take them to be infantile, I will stand on this and assure the president that, yes, you have done your bit. You are in the annals of the Ghanaian history that, someone came. Yes, Akufo-Addo started it. Akufo-Addo talked about it. Some people before Akufo-Addo talked about it. And now, at least, we have got some of the people at least acknowledging that what they did was bad. If what they did was bad, our contribution to what they did to us was terrible. Because I cannot travel the sea, I cannot travel the skies, get to America, and then enslave the people on their own land. We haven't been able to do it. We have always been at the mercy of some people's barbaric act. And we always want to cry uncle without putting or forming some kind of rigid and rigorous systems to make sure that maybe sometime in future, if this barbaric mindset start to reignite in the minds of these people whose ancestors destroy our ancestry, at least we will have something to defend ourselves. If we want to talk about reparations, then we should as well go back and talk about what the Arabs also did during the time of Mansa Musa. And we always say Mansa Musa was the one. And then we are happy that Mansa Musa was able to carry gold, walk the desert, go and dump it, the gold, in Saudi Arabia, and then walk back. Then later, Mansa Musa's grandchildren and grandchildren, Mansa Musa's later generation will come and tell you that we should go and demand reparations. We should go demand reparations from Saudi Arabia. Why is that always we get sold to culture, people's religion, people's identity, but they have never for once bought our culture, bought our identity, bought our food, and bought our traditions. You are in a conundrum. They are telling you, accept sodomy in your country, accept that man and man should marry, woman and woman should marry. You are in a subtle situation now as a president. You don't know what to do. Why can't you vehemently and openly vent out your spleen on this particular position coming from these people? You cannot do it because what? You don't have any defensive mechanism. In the event that if they want to be brutal on you, you cannot withstand their brutality. And you are thinking of, I'm not saying in terms of you as an entity, I'm saying we, majority of us, who they will pay the reparations and later come back in a different form, pounce on us, use all military powers on us, and take their monies back, like what they are doing to Iran. They are quiet. Some people are quiet. They are not talking so much about it. You think that they are not in support. They are in support, but they are playing the game theory on Iran and the rest of the world. So we should use what is going on in Iran as a case study. As a case study, instead of us always trying to play the emotion cards. Being emotional will not solve any problem. Our emotive nature is not what is necessary in this conversation. This conversation should be devoid of emotions. We should approach this thing with rigorous analytical or scientific approach. And if you're able to do that, you will see the way forward. I mean,
the ships that carried the slaves were insured by reputable insurance companies that are some of the richest in the world today and profited from the slave trade. Reparations were paid to slave owners for letting the slaves go. When they abolished slave trade and said the slaves could go, they compensated the person who was enslaved. As recently as 2015, compensation was paid to people for losing their slaves. And you come and tell me that we recognize this as a grievous crime, and you say, oh, but Africans were involved. A ship captain threw 134 slaves overboard to go and claim insurance. There was insurance that compensated for the loss of cargo. And 134 slaves, he threw them overboard and went and found
compensation paid for loss of cargo. So the captain didn't see the human beings who were thrown overboard as human beings. Per your own narration, you said that he was compensated for loss of cargo. So our great-grandfathers were seen as cargoes. We should understand that and then prepare ourselves from today to fiakwa. We refuse to be cargoes going into the next generations to come. What are we? What preparations are we putting in place to make sure that we don't become cargoes? We don't become commodity, but we will be seen in the eyes of others beings as such. Don't attach emotions. You get it wrong. You can never win a battle with your oppressor by using the emotive route. It has never worked. It will not work.
Filed an insurance claim for loss of cargo. The whole discussion has been fragmented. In the record of the Holocaust, there were Jews who were prison guards. There were Jews who pointed out where other Jews were hiding.
You know, when I saw videos of our brothers in the diaspora making videos and saying things like, how dare these people demand reparation when they are the same people who sold us? And I'm like, you know, initially I didn't want to say anything because I realized it's just a few people who are trying to distort the whole message. But these people are not asking themselves simple questions. So if Africans were selling their people, why then they didn't need to establish things like forts? If these people are giving their people to you willingly, why would you need to build a fort? Why would you need to build more forts than castles? You know what a fort is, right?
Fort a day. Meaning, you see, sometimes no, oh yeah, dear. Go Google, see, nebo show what fort a day. Fort a day. Fort a day. Fort meaning a day. Fort a day. Fort. A fortified building or strategic position. Fort a day. E be na dida hon. Go Google, see, anyway, be a fort. Fort a day. Fort a day. Fort a day. Fort miss a day. Abrofo tena. Minia. Kobi 1 Fort a day. Can you also recall right in inside the Cape Coast Castle? Slave traders mienu abrofo maba omobeto and slaves no. Confusion si omumu. Ema baaku kun baaku Cape Coast Castle ho. Mibusa all the forts and all the castles no. Look at where the friends the cannons no pointed coin. Pointed ko eponiso. All the cannons now ubi hunu of forts and the castles now almost see yeno. Poniso na eko. Eponiso no na edinafo ne free eponiso ba. Anase wam ne free eponiso ba. Abrofo ne ba no, they were even fighting among themselves. Coastal area ho. Into bonse na Portugal for ne British Portugal for ne ba no, and normally Dutch for ne kon ye. Omo na we ni we abekon, na we ni we abekon, na we ni we abekon, na we ni we abekon. Sa na ekoso coastal belt ho. India kase fort nche be a ton slaves. Intina kase they were building more slaves than castle. Sa castles no musi ni nyina so. Say dungeons was here. Right? Me wo castle bi wo mechi he ya. One of the oldest castles in the whole of Europe. Dungeon wo ho a. Omo de a young guy anu adi 19 years. Omo so cassette ya wo hene no. E cassette ya religion. Omo de ne kokoko share dungeon ase. It was the practice ane ekoso omo ankasa krom. And sana omo movie edi aba wu krom. And that castle now was built 1076 by William the on the friends say the foundation of Claudius, Emperor Claudius, the Roman Emperor Claudius. Obesi ne danwa ne foundation ne suna years later. Somewhere around 1076. Omusi castle no. Nti castle na muhu no ho no. Momo de ne kra de na afio because at the time no more advance. De wa ha no eya abo nko. But the yes no Elmina no. Said that time na mortar ka ho. Nti Elmina de ne Cape Coast de ne de ya mortar fa ho ama hu nyina ayede. Ayefe. Omo ankasa de no musi ye no. Me say Elmina de ne kra no e fese yeah, because almost in 1076, 400 years later, even 400 years later, 800 years later, 800 years later, and a British never Ghana, officially almost started so much that bay, 1874 to 1957, approximately 83 years. And intina there's a saying that the British ruled Ghana for almost 90 years, or even less than 100 years in a country. The British stayed in Ghana. They never lived there. And Nuntina, Ghana, Nigeria, and it's Anglono, well-developed European communities like what you see in South Africa and Zimbabwe and some of the Eastern African nations, no. India can't say fort, just a fortress, like a strategic positioner who see BB, in terms of all mindset, say, would be defending against your invaders, because Portuguese ne buy, you know, omo who show my bed discover asasi bi o baby. Enti omo mpese omo nkofo omo ni omo Europe no, enso beba aba be capture sa cannons no omo dia hwe epone so say oh ba no ma to abob. They were fighting amongst themselves. They don't tell you all this history. And I yet ho obi the emotions no abeka say obi the o ma me koya akwa. Adent na abrofo anche elmina fo nyina amfomanko slave trade. If indeed the no mo ye na that barbarics adent na some of you are moti honum, some of you slave traders. No mo ko asantimem ko to slaves. Ko denchira ko fast slaves, ko for mena ko fast slaves. No abeto ama bruni. Yefrobi William Sasraku. Have you heard the name before? William Sasraku from Mankasim. Ni papa was a chief slave trade, a friend say, Mugo. Awo Mankasim. And all ton slaves na. Until one time, being a bruni be buying or then the baba, a man said, Abruchi. Or then the ban coin, and a nipper panity when it say, Saya ko ton banu Europe, and the nipco a quack ye slave. And on you die. If you haven't heard of William Sasraku, go and look him up. And then your information age, Mr. President. Into some more can some more can send ye city when some people come out to say, we contributed immensely. Our contribution far exceed the contribution of the so-called oppressors, no. Adena backyard hodie. No mu die ye fu anenye. Unim ni nto man for ye fu ho. The people were too smart because they realized that the numbers are a war Africa hono far outweighs omu presence a war Africa. And so omu ye any barbaric act biya owa. You bet me at the time because our ancestors knew the terrain into meet me a kuomo at any given time. And so omo collect more na omo do ko a lander who nimso. Or no what discover the Caribbeans, what discover the Americans, what discover Brazil, or do ko wa unim terrain ni ohonum sen. And or do ko do honswa. Psychologically no. For asante for those who speak common language. Cool edietiano. And now cause any kind of insurrection or upheaval. So what they did was to strategically separate, disintegrate certain bond between some of the people into a family. No, they are quite frasiniga ni wall of no okasa on te. Okasa on te. Into by the time mon kasama montemo. And over there, no, their numbers are near wohonum no. Near doors so sing a baby before near woho. Into say ba say ye kukrana, we will overpower you. Yamfa a tunis kan kwan tunchen. He abrof no, omu ye smart and one history no, and then they say the people, some of the people cry, they were living around the castle no, never knew exactly what was going on in the castles no. They didn't build the castles for slavery. They built the castles castles no mu besi ye no sa no mu krum omu si omu castles. They built castles and built dungeons under. It is a oba no castles no dungeons anyhow see then you conclude say omu besi castles no basically or purely so omu de beto slaves. So omu de beto slaves there, then we shouldn't see such kind of structures in their own countries. But na omu culture no. Because at the time, we didn't have a separate prison for wrongdoers. Into the bonia, the lord or the chief or the king of the area no, baby or tino ni dayase no, ni ache wild animals, edwoma kugu asio. Into the bonia, ni edwa koto asio. Can't you even read from your own Bible? Say ye che Daniel koto jatabumu. That has been the culture, their lifestyle. That is why the lifestyle you see in the Bible no, is full of European lifestyle. Ma obone nya fita se esukochia like a snow. Ukrom Ghana o snow nto. So and the Bible no. So otro say man shall not live by bread alone. One metro say man shall not live by akple alone, because the writer of the Bible didn't know and didn't have any idea about wakple any boko boko. When they said, look for your daily bread, that is why the prevalent food you see in their Bible, bread. Because the region where the Bible was written, predominant food, bread. Adia isam. Into stretching from Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, even a friend is say Ethiopia, Sudan area, Israel, Turkey, Italy, bread into different types of bread. Pizza na udin bread. Somebody and end up bread. I say, I'm going to look for my daily bread. What you say? Daily fufu. What is daily akple? What is daily eto? What is daily wache? So it is their life. San omud live. And that architecture, that kind of way, we call something the Roman architecture. Into now drew Europe, almost dining in because it was influenced by the Roman architecture. And they take their history from the Greco-Latin. The what? The Greco-Latin. From Greek, neba Latin for now, Rome for no, and after the Latin, a disintegrity, yeah. It be the Spanish for Spanish for no, and Roman for no. Belgium, Portugal, Porco. England, English, ne one we munina from the same ancestry, Romans, name any more split ya the ababedruha. Let's get things straight. Do away with their systems. Let go of their religion. Let go of their mentality, and we will be free. We don't need reparations. What we need is to let go. We need the spiritual freedom. The spiritual freedom. And I'm looking for that day that Africans will have that spiritual freedom instead of what we call the physical freedom. If you get your physical freedom and then you are deprived of your spiritual freedom, forget, there's no need. The physical of no need. what we need is the spiritual cleansing and spiritual freedom. And no nankofun who se Kwame Nkrumah peso oyeno. Into anyone be o pese spiritually or cleanse Africa. Yeah, cattle sharp. Because the day that about 10 million of Africans get that spiritual clearance and spiritual freedom, that day will be the beginning of our liberation. Yeah, acknowledge into Obi. Yes, we will talk about it. We will talk about it. I'm passionate about this one. I'm passionate about this particular topic. Think of when they came, it took years before Yenananum Ebe Dani Christopher. Right from 1471, Portuguese Nelande, yeah. Now almost see Elmina Castle, 1482. Ebayano. Go and read about Jacobus Captain. So along the lines, we were confused as a people. The Portuguese were ruling us or were trading with us. Let's put it that way. The Dutch were trading with us. The English were trading with us. The Swedish were trading with us. The Germans spent 38 years trading with us. Those who didn't trade with us for long, I think, were these people. The Swedish people. Just 13 years. 1650 to 1663. 13 years. The Dutch people took over 1598 to 1872. That's 1782. 274 years. The Dutch were there. And so you hear names of this guy, Wilhelm Antoine Amo. Wilhelm Antoine Amo, one of the Ghana's African's finest philosopher. You didn't call it Usiana Dingna in Dutch because slave master adopted, and in the 17th century, or didn't call it. Philosopher, professor, Germany. I didn't know the young Franco slave because he was adopted. He was not bought. And the people who were slaves, they were all bought. Your people fought useless wars, captured their own people, and handed them on a silver platter, gave them out, sold them out. Now you are saying what? You don't want to hear this side of the story. Afina for our own people, the Ashantis were furious. The kings were furious because they didn't know what to do with the slaves. Can someone explain to me why we have a bunch of our northern brothers surrounding the Menchia Palace? Do you know how that thing happened? Because some people got slaves. When what the Maya said that people were capturing and buying slaves from the north, why do you think we had the Salaga slave market? Salaga slave market is not slave capture. A Salaga slave market. It means that people went there and sold their own kids for something at the time they thought was precious to them. While Wuprekese didn't have any use of those kids. Take some and give me guns so I can fight my Sisala brother. So I can fight my Kusasi brother. So I can fight my own brothers and sisters up there in the north. So we had Salaga slave market. President Mahama, don't you know Salaga slave market? And some people from the south will go to the north, buy the slaves, walk them down to the south, pass through Kumasi, go through Formina to have their last bath, and then proceed to Cape Coast. So when people got the slaves and then they arrived in Kumasi, and the news broke that there has been abolishment of slave trade, and people didn't know what to do with the slaves. So they started using some of them to do farming. That is why you go into the hinterland, you see our northern brothers in the hinterland. There are many in the hinterlands in the Ashanti region. You go there, go to Edra, go to those areas like Tepa, small villages and cottages. Go there. And you don't want to hear this story. Market. Slave market. What do we do inside the marketplace? What do we do there? You go to market, what do? We do buying and selling. No one single person can do market. Market is there for buying and selling. Only will be a trade. He said that when they came with a barter system of trade. What is a barter system of trade? You have this. I also have that. You have this, I have that. You want the pen, and I have. So what do? You swap. You exchange. That is a barter system of trading. And when the white lady said that we didn't have money,
it's like going to the mall to buy something. And even though they are selling you the thing, you go inside the mall and build a structure. I mean, they are selling the thing to you willingly. So why would you need a structure like a fort? So we'll sit here and act like there were no black people who owned and sold slaves in America. If you have a problem with Ghana demanding reparation, then you should have a problem with people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You see these people as your heroes, right? These people were inspired by Marcus Garvey, the same man that pushed for reparation back then, before now. Later on, before people like Chief Abiola from Nigeria, some of you are the reason why we have people or journalists like this woman who will sit on TV boldly and say that colonialism favored Africans.
We now have a generation that believes everything we did by colonizing. Yes, it is true. They think everything about colonization was wrong. It wasn't. There were some terrible things and there were some good things to come out of it. And that.
See how honest this woman has been. Or say, in as much as we always painting the bad side of colonialism, not everything. She admitted in her submission that yes, there were some nasty stuff, of course, and we cannot as well rule out certain aspects. When they came, you were not even able to write down date. You couldn't date your stuff. What are you guys talking about? That shows how weak the people they captured were. If the people were not that weak, how can a foreigner get into your land? And then you throw out your language, you throw everything, and then one day you wake up and you decide that, oh, please, my brother, you are Obutu. Your brother Simpa, your brother Ogwa, you have confrontation. For the mere fact that you share the same color, can't you base on that and then deal amicably with your brother? You carried yourselves and then went and signed the bond of 1844. A foreigner comes to your country and then his language, not your language, on your land. And you think you are smart, and you think that foreigner should come and worship you? That when they came, we had a Dinkra. You had a Dinkra. A Dinkra no, in the history. When did we even hear a Dinkra's name? Were you able to put a Dinkra to make meaning? You couldn't do it. You see, sometimes let's put all these things aside. Even now, have we been able to produce anything at all? All the sophisticated machines we are using to construct our roads, to build our houses, to do everything from food to clothing to water to everything. These people, their kids today, are always developing. What makes you think that we are exceptionally different from our ancestors who were captured onto their ship?
And that is about properly acknowledging your past.
Education.
Yes, completely.
Sanitation.
Transportation.
There was so much that we brought to communities.
Those countries did not have money. They did not have the creativity. They did not have people in positions of power to do this. No,
we didn't have money, my brother and sisters. Yes, we didn't have money. We were sitting on wealth, but we didn't know what to do with that wealth. They introduced us to money system. And it's true, we didn't have money. So don't take your mind to gold. Gold is not money. Gold is wealth. It's a resource. It's a mineral. We didn't even know. Up until now, what meaningful thing have we been able to do with our gold? The only meaningful thing is that you see Otun for carrying gold. Supposedly something that looks like gold around his neck. Domahine na moto na nkwasiade na mesosen domahine na domahine so se meso mentrance ma onso nsen mi na moto na Jimmy Fomienu e na omudi nkwasiade wokro ni mu. Se ya na omoye yo. O mesosen de nchirahene. On da bi me ma mbedi mi so. Me ni broni be kwa akoye yete ho no ana broni ni fa de nchirahene na ofa asantehene e na oka omo nyina bom na odi omo so. Ene ne yete ho ena broni na sate ho ena domahene te wona nkwasiade otumfo so te wona nkwasiade ena broni no ekoso die so tie yesa jimisem we nyina awia. Then later days to come, 500 years is not far away. We may not be there to see it, but this video, if we don't go through another tectonic, massive tectonic kind of experience for our civilization to vanish, to totally diminish, this video will be there. And some of our grandchildren will say, na enkoto kan simu inkofo na ntie. Okay? There were a lot of us in that time. Omo kasaye ahemfo ntie, because they saw them not coming from a royal family. And Kofobi were like us. Omo challenge the status quo. Omo catch them say, mudye minim broni aba na ye toni agye etuo na de akokun ya tamfo a wo de wo se enye nteme nton ye nipa me mfa nko. There were people like us who were always speaking the hard truth. Some of them were chased, some of them were killed. Now here we are discussing the same story some people discussed some 400-500 years ago. And what are you guys talking about? You do be see here. And I fry a friend is saying and you be here. But I want Mr. President to understand that if you are seen as a commodity in business, in trading, you don't pay compensations to the commodity. You pay compensations to the commodity owner. In trading, Mr. President, get this straight. You pay compensations to a trader, not the traded goods or the commodities. In business, those who think that our argument is infantile. Yes, we want people to know that we exist. That we want to also establish on this premise that compensations in the history of the world's economy haven't been paid to any commodity but the owner of the commodity. That's why when your building gets demolished, it is not the building we compensate. We compensate the owner of the building. So let's assume the building also had life and could talk. Let's assume. So we are the building, and the house. We Africans are the commodity. And you made mention in one of your statements that a slave trader of cargo, lost of cargo. So it was the trader who received the compensation, not the cargo. Because the cargo doesn't own the trader, but the trader owns the cargo. Adios. I love you all. Opa tiasie. Opa men tiasie. Makramo. Bye bye. School goes, yeah, imagine how